Hello, this is Gretchen, the Verdant Crafter. Today I'm going to be showing you the 10 cards I made using the Simon Says Stamp 2017, September 2017 card kit. It was called Best Birthday. So I did record myself showing you what materials were available in this kit, but I don't know where that footage went. So I'm going to jump directly into my first card. I'm using one of the Jelly Bean stamp or Jelly Bean shaker tags. I put it down into my MISTI, and then I put a piece of, actually it was the plastic that the stamp set came in. I put that down and I shaped my sentiment, which says wishing you the best birthday ever, around that. I stamped it with VersaFine ink, and I'm going to clear emboss it with Nuvo embossing powder. It's just going to give it a shiny look and make sure it's heat set, so I'm not going to smudge that ink. So after this, I decided that I wanted something in the middle. So I'm going to hold up my stamp set. Oh, first I'm going to play with the shaker, see how it looks. It's really deep. You can create a very thick shaker. So the heart does fit perfectly into the balloon opening. I think that's a great thing to use, and it's a fantastic little heart. I love that it has the rainbow lines to go with the rainbow and the colorful sentiment. So I'm going to be stamping it with VersaFine ink. I'm just holding the tag closed so I make sure I don't get the edges of it. I'm going to open it up and heat set it again with clear embossing powder. Now I do wish that I had done some more thinking before I did this, because I wasn't sure how I was going to color it until after the fact. I decided to use my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers, but I did think about using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers or my colored pencils or something else. I know that alcohol markers and embossing powder don't go well together, but I was very, very careful not to go over the lines. And I also made sure if I did go over the lines, I didn't go over them more than once. And I wasn't keeping my marker there. So my guess is that the alcohol sort of dissolves the plastic that happens to be the embossing powder. That dissolved plastic gets onto your nib and messes things up. So you can see that I have the colors that I used up there. I didn't do any shading, it's very basic coloring, and this tag paper worked fantastically for it. It was great. You can see where it doesn't show, I did test my marker first to make sure I liked the color. Now I decided, since I'm physicsy and arty, or sciencey, that I would do a double rainbow sort of thing. So I'm starting with red, going to purple, and then like a double rainbow, I'm starting from purple, well blue this time, and going back to red. Instead of repeating the rainbow, so going red to purple and then red to purple again. It's just fun. It's what you would see in real life if you saw a double rainbow. Okay, I did decide to color around the edge of it so that it was blue. I needed some more color there, and I didn't want just the cream color of the tag, although it's a very nice cream color. I like it. It's sort of natural. It's got a little bit of, I mean, you could call it hay, but it's not really hay. It's just, it adds a little bit of extraness. So I'm using my clear sparkling Pretty Pink Posh sequins. I have the mix, that's the 4, 6, and 8 millimeter. I added some of the extra 4 millimeter because I like how they fill things out. I like small sequins. I think they look really nice. I also decided to glue some to the heart to make sure that the sequins could stay stuck. I'm using my quick stick picker upper tool from Memory Box. It works really well. I believe partway through you'll see that I change and try something else. I think it's a jewel picker from Marvy. I'm also just using multi-matte medium. It's a strong glue. It dries very clear. Now I'm just going to peel off the backing that's on the shaker piece. I love that. It makes it so easy to use. Flip it over and I have a great little shaker. I'm trimming it off because the tag doesn't fit perfectly. There's a little bit of overlap, and I felt like it didn't have enough glue or stick because the tag was just bowing up a little, not really bowing, just didn't fit quite right. So here I'm going to use my, I don't even know what it's called, rivet setter or whatever, and put in a black rivet. I would have liked to put in a silver one, I think, but I didn't really have a silver that I liked for this card. So I'm going to use the MFT Boysenberry card base for this. I thought about using the card bases that come in the kit. I really wanted to, but I felt like the Boysenberry MFT fit with the purple that I used, and since I only had one purple stripe, I really wanted to pull that in. I covered the back generously with EK Success powder tool. One got clogged, and when I unclogged it, it just fell apart. So I just dumped some of that on and then used the other brush to rub it away. Here I'm using the Cloud 9 embossing powder that came from WOW in the last Simon Says stamp card kit. It's this beautiful, sparkly, shimmery gray color, but the sparkles are sort of multicolored. So I am just going to heat set that. Not every one of my stamps was perfect, but I knew some of them would be covered with the card, and you know, it's a handmade card. I will try and use a Swiffer cloth to try and get up the embossing powder, but the embossing powder, again, it has that glitter in it, so it's rough, so it sort of started to pull up hairs from the Swiffer piece. So I ended up sort of using my hands and just going around it carefully. I also decided to use some of this silver ribbon. It's actually ribbon that I stole from my mom. Don't tell her. She's not missing it, so it's okay. I'm just using a pokey tool to stick it through, loop it through, and I will end up taping this directly or gluing it directly down onto my card base. I did think about doing something extra, adding some of those little pieces. I do use a micron pen to just draw a little line for my balloon, a string. Because this is a shaker, I probably should have used glue, but I usually use tape runner. So I had to hold it because I didn't want to crush it. I'm also using some glue dots to just stick down my ribbon, and I keep fussing with them because they don't quite look right. I like them to look as natural as possible, which isn't always easy or recommended. So I can say I did fiddle with them later. Yeah, it has great shakiness, and I think it looks very nice now. So this is going to be my second card. I'm going to use the other shaker tag, the balloon shaker tag from Jilly Bean Soup, but I only had one of the balloon shaker pouches, so I'm going to use some clear acetate, just plastic sheet, to create my shaker pouch. Right now I'm creating my background, so I'm going to cover it with the anti-static powder tool. I put down the happy birthday sentiment. It's a really long sentiment that you can stamp on the back of an envelope at a diagonal into my mini Misty. I'm going to ink that up with VersaFine. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting what I'm talking about. It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday. So I'm just going to keep stamping that up, and I'm not going to have you watch me do the whole thing, I think. I will pour on clear sparkling embossing powder, I believe from Hero Arts, but I'm not sure. There are fantastic clear sparkling embossing powders out there. So use whatever you have, use whatever's best for you. Okay, so here, yep, I have my clear sparkling embossing powder. I will heat set that. Because of where I put it in my Misty, I didn't stamp the whole way. I will go back and stamp that, but I won't show it to you. The sparkle in this clear embossing powder is so pretty. It's very delicate and pretty. It catches your eye, but it's not outstanding and in your face. So the tag, I decided that I wanted the background showing. So I cut it off near the fold. I'm just trimming it because it is really nice paper, but it's thick. So it got a little bit gummed up on my needs to be replaced trimmer blade. I'm using tape and sticking down the piece of acetate. And once again, I'm going to use the silver ribbon just to loop that through. I love Doodlebug paper. It's so fun. They've got just great little designs. And here's where I wasn't thinking. I cut off the big piece and then tried to trim it. It's much easier to trim small pieces from a big piece than the other way around. So I was debating if I wanted to use the clouds or if I wanted to use the little unicorns. They're both so much fun. In the end, I decided to go with the unicorns. I like unicorns. I mean, who wouldn't like unicorns, honestly? So I'm going to put that on with some tape, trim it off, and I am also going to peel off that happy birthday sentiment that I used to create my background. I'm using a block to pick that up, and I'm going to use some Altenew ink. I cannot remember the color, but it matches the paper that I'm using. And it really matches where I have the paper embossed. And I'm just stamping the happy birthday. Okay. I am going to get out some foam tape. I'm going to double that up. And I ended up cutting strips out of it. I cut it in half. And here I'm just going to create my well for my shaker card. This foam tape, I don't even know what it was. I got it from some craft store. It works really well. It was nice and flexible. I'm trying to use up things. In my move, I discovered I have lots of little things that I thought I needed or I like and bought again. I'm using anti-static powder tool to take away any stickiness so that the sequins that I used can move freely. And I'm going to get out the clear sparkling sequins from Pretty Pink Posh again. The multi-sizes 4, 6, and 8 millimeter. I'll also, oh no, I thought I got out the 8 millimeter. I guess I was wrong, or 4 millimeter. Oh my goodness. I do wish that I had glued these down, a few of them, so that when you're looking at your shaker card, all of the sequins aren't on the bottom, but it does have a nice little shake there. I'm going to add some extra sequins, some bling, using multi-matte medium. You'll see it here. I think it's a fun little card. It was quite easy to produce. And, you know, if you switch up those unicorns with something else, it can go for anyone. Now, it might be a little bit blingy for some guys, but that's okay. I also added Spectrum Noir over the unicorns just to give them a little extra kick because they're unicorns and they're fun. I do play with the ends for a little bit, and I end up getting out some more of the glue dots and putting them down. And again, later on, I fuss with them quite a bit because I want them to look as natural as possible. Okay, moving on to card number 3. I have a stamp set from Lawn Fawn that has a unicorn, and it's so much fun. I thought that it perfectly matched this card kit. So I stamped that and colored a whole bunch of them. I also stamped the cloud that came in this best ever or best birthday stamp set, whatever it's called. And the rainbows. I stamped a whole bunch and colored them. It was fun. I still have tons of them. I used one of the Nuvo brushes to ink up my background with some blue distress ink. My bottom has faded jeans and some other stuff. I believe the top is broken china or tumbled glass, something quite light. I just wanted a slight gradient, but I didn't want it too much in your face. The one thing that I would sort of change about this is I wish that I had cut it bigger than I needed so I could trim off the edges. I did use Distress Glaze over this. I knew I was going to use clear, the White Blizzard Nouveau drops, and that can pick up the color from the Distress ink, which is great if you want it to match that. But I didn't. So I coated the whole background in the Distress Glaze. It was really easy to do. It was no problem. So I played with all of the different rainbows for a while, and you really didn't need to see that. Because of the Distress Glaze, I felt it needed a really strong adhesive. So instead of just using my tape runner, I did use double-sided tape, and I think eventually in some places I squirted a little bit of the multimedia matte adhesive. So I'm just going to stagger 5 of these rainbows. I fussy cut these out so they have a slight white border, and later on I'm going to add in, and this is where I'm really going to use the multi-matte medium, clouds that I colored and cut out. Mostly I just added shadows with those. I'm using the Art Impressions Action Wobblers, they're the small size, to stick on my little unicorn, and I'm going to emboss on white heat emboss on black paper, sending lots of color your way. I think that's a really nice sentiment and something that you could send to lots of, and it's also a pretty generic sentiment. Okay, I am not sure what just happened. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. So I'm using Wow Bright White Ultrafine Embossing Powder. I think it gives great details and it's super, super white. I'm just dusting off any of the excess heat embossing powder, and I will trim that with my paper trimmer. I will also cut a little slash on it to give it a little extra interest. I did think about using a different color, but I felt like black would be a nice bold color that makes a statement. I also use my Wink of Stella over the rainbows and the mane and tail for the unicorn. I do have the Spectrum Noir shimmer pens, but sometimes they cause alcohol markers to discolor the coloring that you did. And I didn't want that to happen because I'm not sure when I'm going to give this card. I'm using some little pieces of foam tape. You could use just regular foam tape. There's the tiny Doris strips that are really popular right now. These are from Stampin' Up. They work well for me in this case. And now I'm simply going to add my little action wobbler. It's so much fun. Can you hear it? Okay. So now I'm thinking about what paper I want to put this on. It would have been nice if I had thought to match the colors of the rainbow to the colors in the paper, but I didn't. So I ended up going with white. And what you don't see, because I forgot to do it on camera, but I did do, was adding the White Blizzard Nouveau drops. So those are the clear glitter Nouveau drops on the background. Okay, so next up is a card that actually gave me quite a bit of trouble. I cut a lot of that trouble out, but you will see parts of it. So I have my piece of paper. It's orange and it has darker orange flowers on it. I'm going to use my Misty just because I want to make sure I stamp it straight to stamp the heart and heat emboss it along with the scripty happy birthday sentiment. It's such a nice little sentiment. I love how scripty it is. With white embossing powder. I do end up fussing with it because I want to make sure A, it's centered, and B, that I get the stamp just right. Here I'm using my VersaFine to ink it up. I'm going to double stamp it because I do have it in the Misty and I can. I probably should have triple stamped it because the B, the top of the B in birthday, is missing just a teeny tiny little piece. But it's okay, you can tell what it says. And it still looks fine. So I'm going to white heat emboss that after I flick off any of the extra embossing powder. And there we go. Almost. Okay, there we go. I did end up trimming it more. I decided to stamp on the background, and if I'm going to be stamping on the background, then I want the background to show a little bit more. Originally, I had stamped all over the background in the heart and white heat embossed it, but my stamping wasn't quite right. So then my other first attempt was to use the gel pens. I have some gel pens on the paper to color in the heart, but the yellow, once I got to the yellow, it just didn't look right, so I stopped there. I got out some of my colored pencils and I colored over them, just, you know, normal red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then blue, green, yellow, orange, red. Reverse color again. Okay, so here is my image. I'm going to, so right there I have, not foam tape, fun foam. So it's popped up just a little bit. And on the background, I stamped those little candles and white heat embossed them. Here's my white Blizzard Nuvo drops. I'm adding a few of those around. And now that I'm looking at the final card, I wish I hadn't put as many on, especially since the cat stepped in some later, so they got smudged. And I also smudged one myself. But that's okay. This was a very simple card to make. And, you know, I think you could modify it to fit your needs very easily. I did put Spectre Noir Sparkle pen brush over the heart. So here I got out a Xyron sticker maker to turn those two strips of paper into stickers. I thought they would be easier than trying to get tape runner on them or trying to glue them down. I also cut down a piece of paper to 4 by 5 1/4, and I quarter chomp rounded one side. So I've put on those two stickers that I made. I'm going to put that into my Misty, and I'm going to line up that fantastic little candle. Now, if I could do this again, I would have lined it up differently, so I would have switched my Misty so I was opening it up instead of sideways and done it that way. I'm going to be double stamping each of these with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I will eventually heat set these. I'm just going to keep moving these over. I do cover the entire front in a row. I think it adds a nice graphic little pop, which is unexpected given the coloring. So you can see it's there. I got out my die cutting machine, and I am going to die cut a circle, and I'm going to stamp with, again, Onyx Black ink. Birthdays are for fun, friends, and eating your weight in cake. Frosting, yum. I thought about putting a vellum circle or something behind it because I felt like it could probably use something to weight it. I got a little extra ink there, so I was erasing it with my Tombow sand eraser. But in the end, you'll see, it's fine. It works out. It's a really nice card. I actually really like this one. I think you could modify the colors pretty easily to fit pretty much anyone. I'm using foam tape to stick up that circle, and I'm going to use the teal, the blue sprinkle shape from Doodlebug. I'm going to pop that up a little, you'll see, with foam tape so that it sits easily with the circle that I'm putting there. It's such a cute little shape. I really like it. I also decided that it needed a little something extra. It couldn't be done yet. So I got out some gems. I think they're from Lucy's cards, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. And picked out all of the clear ones and put, well, some of the clear ones and put them on. Next up, we have another fantastic card. It was super easy, and you could easily make 2 or possibly 3 of these, depending on how you decided to do it. So I have a scrap of the stripy paper, and I'm putting that down on one end. And I'm going to end up putting the other one down, but I wasn't exactly sure where. So I'm going to line it up about where I want it, with the understanding that, you know, as long as it's straight, it's going to be fine. I trimmed off the excess with my scissors, and I'm going to pop up my middle panel. It has unicorns and a castle and balloons and flowers and little stars and hearts and cupcakes and ice cream and clouds and rain, and it's just so much fun. I'm popping that up with foam tape, and I'm going to put it in the middle. I was sort of on the fence if I wanted to put sparkle on it, if I wanted to use some Nuvo drops. I did think about using Nuvo drops, and I thought about using those colorful gems that I was using in my last card. But then I remembered that the sprinkles came with some colored dots. And I seem to remember Jess of Just Crafts recommending that you start using those shapes right away so that you make sure you use them and you don't have them left over. So I thought I'd take her great advice. I'm stamping my sentiment, sending lots of color your way. Again, in this set, it was probably my favorite sentiment. I don't give love cards, and I never remember when people's birthdays are. So sending lots of color your way, or big holiday cards like Thanksgiving or Halloween or Christmas or Happy New Year or anything like that is much more likely for me to be on the ball with. I'm following the rules of 3 and just adding a bunch of little dots. They do stick well, but they were easy enough to peel off. Unless you're really digging your nail into them, after they've sat there for a while, they're not going anywhere. So you could use extra adhesive if you want, but I don't think that it's required. Yeah, so this was a fun card. My next card, I used a little inker embossing plate or die cutting plate. So I decided that I really wanted to use the cloud paper. It's a blue background with stars and clouds with little smiley faces. They're just so much fun. So I used this little inker thing, and I put it on an embossing pad and ran it through my Cuttlebug. I think that's what it is. So I got the embossed clouds on the background. It creates great texture and dimension, and it's just fun. They have those great little stitch lines. I did end up using my on the clouds just to give it a little dimension, so it's sparkly where the clouds are and it's not sparkly the rest of the places. I tested it in the middle because I knew that with my cloud panel on there, you wouldn't see it in the middle. I did feel like at one point my brush ran, I did squeeze it and I got a little bit too much. So my middle panel, I'm popping up with foam tape. At this point, I believe I'd used up that roll that I was using before, which is great. Not that I used it up, but that I don't have it anymore. And I also stamped sending lots of color your way and clear and white emboss that on the black paper. So here are some of the shapes that I colored. So the rainbow and the clouds. These I cut out right against the line. Looking at the card now, I might go back and add in the little smiley faces because the background has those on the clouds. I'm also adding some of the jewels from Lucy's cards. They're fun, they're pretty, they add sparkle and a little bit of dimension, and it definitely plays off the sparkle that's in the background. I'm moving on to my next card, and it's going to be another one of those shaker tag cards. I'm using the Jelly Bean Soup Small Heart shaker tag and the shaped shaker that came with the kit. This, I believe, is going to be my last shaker because I didn't use the other tag, but it's still fantastic and it was so much fun. So on the back or inside of the tag, I put some of the pink polka dotted paper, and on the outside of it, I'm going to put one of those scraps of rainbow striped paper. I am also going to use peel-offs, black peel-offs from Love from Lizzie. She's an English entrepreneur. And I think they add a nice little bit of pop, especially since I'll end up putting a black grommet or whatever it's called at the top, which you don't see me doing. I will say that I'm trying to be really smart and sort of Jennifer Maguire here, which was silly of me. Obviously, I'm not. And I struggled trying to use a pen or a blade instead of my finger and the way that I had been doing it to put down peel-offs. Here, I'm just putting down my shaker piece. It shakes so nicely. You can hear it a little, hopefully, maybe. I did overfill it, and I didn't show you, but in the back of the shaker, I stamped Happy Birthday with black onyx ink. Here on my cotton candy pink card base, that was a card base that came in the kit. I'm going to stamp with VersaFine the heart line that you can use to decorate your envelope and the happy birthday line. And then I'll go back and stamp the heart line again in clear sparkly embossing powder. I thought that would add some nice sparkle and interest. And I feel like the sparkle is good, but the shininess from the clear embossing powder doesn't add anything. In fact, if anything, I think it detracts something from this card. But it works, it's super fun, and it's very fantastic. Using my Misty, especially these sentiments that I hadn't used the heart at all, I only used the happy birthday. I do like to double stamp. I like to make sure that I get my stamping right. You'll actually see at the end, there's a card base that I ruined because I hand stamped it and I was impatient and I just didn't take enough time. So that's why I end up covering the card base with other stuff. But that's okay. We all learn from our mistakes. And you know what? A learning experience is never wasted. Although sometimes we wish it was. Again, I'm using my Misty anti-static powder tool. And we're going to stamp our little hearts. And I believe that shaking sound or shaking look was actually my cat jumping up onto the table. Because apparently that's very important to her. Right, Bruiser? She says right. Okay, just putting away, lining up my stamp, making sure everything's straight. So this card kit was super fantastic. The stamp set that came in the kit had lots of different stamps, which was great. It definitely had a happy birthday theme since, you know, the stamp set or the card kit was named Best Birthday. The stamp set was called Best Ever. I'm going to bet that it was designed by Christina Warner, but I don't know that for sure. If you look at the happy birthday script, that's a lot like some of the script that she uses in other stamps, and she does when she does her hand-lettered sentiments. It also came, of course, with Doodlebug paper. It was the Doodlebug Fairy Tales collection, just some of them, and they were so much fun. Here, again, I'm trying to be smart, and I put double-sided tape on the back and peeled it off partway to try and line it up perfect and then stick it down, and that just didn't work. I need more practice with that. And once again, I'm going to use glue dots to stick down my different ribbons, my tag thing, you know what I mean, and fiddle with it, and I'll fiddle with it more later, off screen. I don't know why, but when I originally do them, they never look right. And you know, you leave them alone for a day and they look fine. Does anyone else do that? Okay. I thought about stamping something extra on the front, and decided instead to stamp the long sentiment, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, in black onyx ink on the inside of the card. So on the front of the card, you have the rivet at the top of the shaker, and you have the two black peel-offs that border the rainbow stripe, but there's really not any other black. I thought about adding something else like a stripe of paper on the inside, but it just didn't feel right. So I am going to add some of the clear sparkling sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. I'm using my multi-matte medium, and I am using, I think it's a Marvy jewel picker to put those on. I need more practice with that too. So I will switch back to my memory box, I don't know, whatever I normally use. This is a fun card. I would definitely give this to a girl or a boy who really likes pink. Whatever. Okay, so this card base was one that I messed up. You will see soon that I white heat embossed a bunch of hearts on the front. Remember that orange card? I ended up heat embossing candles on the pink card base. So right now I'm putting down some double-sided score tape that was very big. I'm just trimming off the extra, and I'm going to do one of my favorite techniques. This is something that I started doing recently with scraps, and I fell in love with it. So there, I'm just dusting anti-static powder tool around the edges so that they're not too sticky. I have a whole bunch of scraps from this project, from these cards. So I have those, and I'm going to cut some of my, smaller, not whole pieces of paper down into stripes so that I can line them all up and create a nice little pattern. And then I will put silver, colored silver-ish, I think it's called like Cosmic Swirl or something, foiled flakes. Nuvo has a great product. The gilding flakes, that's what they're called. These aren't Nuvo, but they work fantastic. So I cut up a whole bunch of paper. I am being strategic, so here I'm cutting up to have the rainbows or the castle or the unicorn. I ended up actually cutting most of these to similar sizes, widths, about 1/4 of an inch, not really half an inch, but some of them varied a little bit, especially the ones for the paper that had the stripes. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of paper, and I'm going to peel it off. So here you can see that my embossing wasn't perfect. I tried to fix one of them by stamping again, and yeah, didn't work. So instead we're going to line these up. I am leaving a tiny gap between them. I have discovered that it's better to leave more of a gap rather than less of a gap. If it's too small of a gap, it's really hard to get the gilding flakes in there and make sure they stick. You can also do this. I actually made 2 cards, but I'm only showing you 1 card with these supplies. Here's the Cosmic Swirl gilding flakes. I have tried it with like the sheets of embossing that you get to put through your laminator and using toner with, but if the space is too small, it's really hard to get it in there. So these gilding flakes work a lot better. I'm just putting them in. I am trying to get just the silver ones because I felt like this card design, these colors, worked better with pure silver rather than a mixture. But if I do get a mixture, I'm not worrying about it. I'm sticking those in between the little gaps and rubbing them in. I will use a brush eventually to get any excess off. And yeah, this can be messy. That's why I'm putting it in a pink box. I'll get all of the scraps that I can back in to the little pot with the gilding flakes. And I will use a Swiffer cloth to clean everything up. But it's not too messy. It's pretty easy to do. and it produces fantastic results that look really interesting. I was showing someone some other cards that I'd made using this technique, and they didn't think that I had done anything. They thought the paper came out right. So that's always a compliment. I have a piece of vellum there. I'm using my Misty, and I'm putting the heart on. I'm also going to really bend that happy birthday sentiment around it, and I will emboss it with Nuvo Purple Haze embossing powder. I think I've used it before, but I didn't remember using it. It's great. It's got this metallic sheen to it, and it looks so great with the colors and the paper, with the silver Nuvo flakes, or not Nuvo flakes, gilding flakes. Sorry. It's just fantastic. So here I am using my embossing powder, and I thought about throwing it away or dusting it all off because I clearly didn't stamp well enough there. Instead, what I decided to do was go with it and try stamping it again because I still had it in the Misty, and I did. So my sentiment is a little bit bolder, but I think it looks great. Here is an envelope. It's just a regular envelope that I got from AC Moore. I don't even know the brand, but you can get great envelopes from Hero Arts, Simon Says Stamp, Gina K Design, MFT, My Favorite Things. There are fantastic envelopes out there, and I encourage you to look around and try different things. I also decided on the back to to black stamp with VersaFine ink the heart that of course is on the front of my card. You can see that I glued that piece of vellum down with glue, just tiny dots of multi-matte medium behind all of the embossing, and I stuck a clear block on top of it, just a heavy weight so that it would stay stuck. And there you can see I have my card and my envelope. I did think about using some sequins, but the gilding flakes don't need it. And here is, I believe, my last card. This card was totally different. I decided to try something totally different. So I have a white circle that I die cut out, and I am just going to stamp happy birthday with that beautiful scripty script with Distress Ink Seedless Preserves, or Distress Oxide Seedless Preserves. I also decided to use Faded Jeans right at the very tip. So at the happy, or the H and the PPs and the B and the T, it just gets a little bit of dimension to it. I wasn't even in my pressing down. So the day, especially the AY, is a little thicker than I want it. I used my heat gun to dry that because Distress Oxide inks do have that pigment dye ink fusion, so it stays a little bit longer. I glued down one of the strips that I cut out and hadn't used that says Birthday Girl, and it has the fun cones, ice cream cones. I decided to use the ice cream cone and the other ice cream or sherbet thing. I did pop up the ice cream cone with some glue dots, or maybe it was foam tape, with something. Before I did that, I used my anti-static powder tool. I don't know why I did that, because most of it's popped up, and this isn't flexible like a piece, like a sticker or something else that would be pushed down if it was mailed, although I probably won't mail this anyway. Of course, I don't really mail things very often. I tend to hand things to people a lot. These sprinkles were super cute. I really enjoyed working with them, and I don't think I utilized all, well, I know I didn't utilize all of them in the best manner possible, but I got a lot of ideas, and they were just so much fun. So I am using my Misty, and I'm going to stamp on my card base with the Seedless Preserves again. I'm going to stamp stripes all across it. And I am going to dry it. Once it's dry, I sprayed it with water to try and get a little bit of extra texture, but didn't really. And here I'm using some double-sided tape. I'm just putting that down between all of the stripes. And yes, the stripes do deliberately get narrower at the end. I wish it was an accident, so I decided to just go with it and keep making them narrower. If I did it again, I would make the top stripes, or the stripes at the top of the screen right now, farther apart. So I'm putting down all of this double-sided tape, and I believe I edited out all of the places where I was really fighting with it, because when I was tearing it off, it didn't come up easily for me. Okay. So I decided I have a bunch of glitter that I never use, because glitter is cool, but I never know what to do with it. So I have all of this double-sided tape. I'm trimming off the edges, and I'm going to use some Nouveau glitter. This is white clearish, but it's got holographic shimmer. I don't remember what it's called, but it is very pretty. Here again, I'm trying to be all smart and use a knife to peel all those pieces up, but it was easier to use my thumbnail. So I didn't show you, that's a surprise, me putting the glitter on all of them, but to be fair, I sort of got it everywhere, and I edited out most of that, and apparently too much of it. So I do have glitter all over the embossing, those tape lines. And here I'm going to use double-sided tape over the back of my circle and the area with, happy or birthday girl and the ice cream cones. This pops it up just a little bit, makes it a little bit more interesting, and adds some great dimension, but not too much. I am going to use my scissors to trim it off. And there we go. We have a fantastic card. I did think about adding something else, but I didn't. Okay. So here's what I have left. The best ever clear stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. One almost whole piece of paper from Doodlebug Design. A ton of scraps, well, quite a few scraps. Oh, I did not show you all 10 cards. So somewhere I have, so this is 9 cards, 1 kit. My apologies. I believe at the end I will show you a picture of one card that I made with a diagonal cut piece of the rainbow stripe paper. Those are my cards. Those are the sprinkles that I have left. Those are all the pieces that I either hand cut out or die cut out, and I colored. So a bunch of unicorns, tons of clouds, tons of rainbows. I think I used this kit pretty well. Okay. And yeah, I'm doing great on the editing thing. My apologies. My only excuse is I'm pretty new to doing this card making editing thing. And we just started the school year, and I'm now teaching robotics, which I've never taught before and never had interested in before. So this is my first card. I really liked it. The sentiment, "Have a magical day," comes from the stamp set that had the unicorn that I used. So you can see I heat embossed the happy birthday with the silver embossing powder I used here. And I used a bunch of gems. So yeah, I'm teaching robotics, which is totally new to me, and it's fantastic. But I don't know anything about it yet. But I'm learning. It just takes a lot of learning to get there, which is exciting. So here's my unicorn. I love that it's on the little spring. My sparkly happy birthday card that caused me so many problems. Here, I think this is a fantastic card design. If you switch up the colors, you can definitely use it for someone else, maybe the sentiment too. My sending lots of color card, and another one. I'm definitely going to go back and add the smiley face and the cheeks to that card. And here is my shaker card, one of the last cards. And here is the envelope that goes with my scrap card. That looks just so pretty and fun. And my final card that used tons of glitter. Actually, not really. So here are some still shots. I really hope you enjoyed this. I know it's super long and I apologize. Especially towards the end, I clearly didn't edit it like I thought I did. And I don't even know what that was. Yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you got some ideas. I know that this was not a great video, but it was an okay video. I hope you'll come back. I definitely plan on making more of these. If you'd like to see 1 or 2 cards made rather than 10 cards, let me know. I'm thinking of, cutting it down, at least for now, into just a few cards that are well made and take a little bit more time versus 10 cards that don't or shouldn't take as much time, because you want to get this done in 20 or 30 minutes of watching versus almost an hour. Oh my goodness. I hope you have a great day, and I hope life is good for you. Thank you for watching. Bye.